Good morning, everyone. Good Erev Shabbos. We are holding at 148 Masechet Shabbos, the 22nd chapter, and the name of the chapter is Chavis. We're going to complete this chapter. We'll start Shoel Odom. We'll start the 23rd chapter, Shoel soon. So halacha machzirin hashever. Halacha is the law that we say that we indeed set a broken bone on Shabbos. In Shmuel's version, if you look at number 1, it says we may set a broken bone. The reason for the permit is that a broken bone endangers the entire limb if it is not set immediately. So it's a pressing situation to do it right away, to set a broken bone. Rabbi Menashe, a scholar who resided in Eretz Yisrael, if it's bread, don't put it on the floor. You can put it on the chair.
You know what? I was looking to get. She wrote it on the bag. I didn't want my wife to say about the chocolate.
So just take this bag. Yeah. Swap the bags.
I have to be a sneaky guy.
Yeah. You got to do whatever it takes for peace.
I know you don't have to do anything like that with your wife. But,
it says that even what's it called? Even Aaron HaKohen used to deviate a little bit from. Yeah.
Well, she wanted me to give you back a bag.
I'm gonna tell her not to put the not to put the description anymore.
What about the cake?
Anyhow, so Rav Archana once made it to Pumbedisa. Came to visit Pumbedisa. Lo alefirke de Rav Yehuda. However, while there, he did not go to attend a lecture given by Rav Yehuda. Shadre le'ado dayolo. Seeking to draw his presence, Rav Yehuda sent Ada, his attendant, to Shmuel. Omar lezil garbe instructed him, go confiscate his cloak until he comes. Okay. Ozol garbe. So the official went and confiscated his cloak. Also ashkeche de kadori shen machziris hashever, and found Rav Yehuda expounding that we may not set a broken bone on the Shabbos. Omar Lei, hearing this, Rabbi Bar Chana said to Rav Yehuda, Achi Omar Rav Chana v'gdot Omar Shmuel. So said Rav Chana from Baghdad in the name of Shmuel. Halacha machzirin hashever, the law is that we may indeed set a broken bone. Amar Lei, Chana didon v'Shmuel didon. Behold, Chana is ours and Shmuel is ours. Meaning they both reside here in Babylonia. V'lo shmielin, yet until you came and related this to me, I had not heard it. V'lav bedina galtich. And now, was it not right that I had your garment confiscated? What's the purpose of confiscating his garment?
3.
Had you not come, we would have not learned this from you. So he confiscated the garment to make him come.
Right. So then he gave over this, and now they changed the thing.
Mission, if one's hand or foot became dislocated, he may not. Rav Avia Yosef Kamed Rav Yosef. Rav Avia was once sitting in the presence of Rav Yosef, his teacher. Shanya Le'edei, it was the Shabbos, and Rav Avia's hand had become dislocated. He was seeking to determine the type of therapies he might be permitted to practice. Omar Lei, Achimai, what about, so he demonstrated various therapeutic practices and said to Rav Yosef, if one does it, so what is the law? Is this permitted? Also, Rav Yosef replied, it's forbidden. V'achimai, so he demonstrated a different practice and said, and if one does it, so what is the law? Amar le'osu. Again, Rav Yosef told him it is forbidden. In the course of performing these demonstrations, Rav Avia's hand became healed. Amar lei, mighty Borloch, what had been your question? Why had you even thought that any such therapy might be permitted. Atanan, was it not explicitly taught in a Baisa mission if one's hand or foot became dislocated, he may not massage them in cold water. But he may bathe according to his usual manner, and if it becomes healed, thereby it becomes healed. Was it not also taught, and machzirin tashever, we may not set a broken bone? The law is that we may indeed set a broken bone. Now, if that part of the Mishnah was amended, perhaps this part of the Mishnah is to be amended also. Omar Lu, Rav Yosef replied to him, to Rav Avyo, he said to him, Kulu bechado mechiso mechisanahu. All the parts of the Mishnah you have woven in the same weave, question mark. Why are you attaching everything? Certainly not. Hechad itmar, rather, where an amendation was stated, there it was stated. Hechad lo itmar, and where an amendation was not stated, it was not stated, and none can be presumed. So, ending off this chapter, Hadon alo chavis, we shall return to you chavis. It says in number 6, although the Mishnah rules that massaging a dislocated bone in cold water is forbidden, Shulchan Aruch rules that manually resetting the dislocated bone in its joint is indeed permitted.
Right. Mishnah Berurah.
Yeah, Mishnah Berurah, citing the Sefer Atzei Shittim, explained this by suggesting that massaging is prohibited only when the dislocation is a minor one. When dislocation is complete, it is permitted even to reset the bone, since not to do so immediately would endanger the entire limb.
That makes sense.
Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom to all. Shoel Odom Mechaver. So we're starting chapter 23, and the name of the chapter is Shoel. Shoel means ask. A person may ask to borrow something. He's borrowing. He's a shoel. You know, the Gemara in Rabbi Kama, Bavatra, Bamatzia, speaks about the 4 types of guardians.
Right. The Shomer Chinam, the
Shomer Chinam, Shomer Sachar, the unpaid and the paid watcher,
right.
And the borrower.
Yeah.
And that's the borrower. That's what we're discussing here. And the soicher and the renter.
Right.
Because ultimately it's an object that goes out from your domain to my domain.
Right.
It just I can have different status.
Right.
I can be either unpaid, paid,
Yeah.
or I can be a borrower,
Yeah.
or I can be a renter.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's your object is now by me.
Yeah.
Is now in my possession. Out of my. It's like you renting a car. At the time that you rent a car, somewhat it's your responsibility, right?
Right.
You're borrowing something.
And
It's
if it
your
damages, you got to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in that sugi in New Jersey at the Kollel.
Yeah. So financial dealings are generally forbidden on Shabbos. Right? The famous joke, a guy comes to shul and he said to his friend,
Not the car.
"Ni Shabbos giret, it's not for Shabbos, but I have a car for sale."
Yeah.
And he goes back and forth, and he says, "It's not for Shabbos, but how much do you want for the car?"
Right.
By the time he comes to Mincha, he said, I thought about it.
Nishka was correct. I'll buy it from you.
No, Ni Shabbos giret, the car is sold already. He said, not for Shabbos. So financial dealings are generally forbidden on Shabbos and Yom Tov. We know that one of the biggest issue, I'm sure the Mishnah will discuss it, or the Gemara, the biggest issue with financial dealings on Shabbos is that people might end up writing a contract. You see, if you offer me such a good deal, imagine you come to me on Shabbos, and assuming your condo is worth $150,000, and you said to me, I want to get rid of my condo quickly, and I give it to you for $20,000.
Yeah.
I want to have it in writing quickly, right? Because it's a great deal. So I want it to be in writing.
Yeah.
So there's a concern that if you're going to start with financial dealings, beside of all the other issues of that the way you speak on Shabbos should not be like the way you speak during the week should not be like the way you speak on Shabbos.
Yeah.
But there's also the issue of maybe people will come to write a contract. But let's see. The Mishnah discusses an exception to this rule. Now, shoyl is a different category because I need a favor. I need sugar. I need something.
Yeah.
I need
Happens
so
all the time.
so it's not really a financial transaction. Shoyl, it's a favor.
Yeah.
It says shoyl odom mechaver kadi yain v'chadi shemen. A person may borrow pitchers of wine or pitchers of oil from his friend on the Shabbos. Wilvad shelo yemor lehalveni, provided that he does not say to him, halveni, lend me. In the same manner, a woman may borrow loaves of bread from a friend. So they got to use the word halveni, lend me. In the same manner, a woman may borrow loaves of bread from her friend. And if the lender does not trust the borrower, Maniach Talisa, so the borrower may leave his cloak with him, with the lender, like a pawn shop. You leave something there. And he make reckoning, cheshbon, a calculation with him after Shabbos. V'chen erev Pesach b'Yerushalayim shechalis b'Shabbos. So to Yerushalayim, when the day of Pesach falls on Shabbos, it says in number 6, the first night of Pesach falls on Saturday night. Bless you.
Nice.
So really, it's Motzei Shabbos. The first night, meaning Leila Seder, the Seder night you're going to do on Motzei Shabbos, right?
Yeah.
So remember, we discussed there's a problem. What do you do with the Korban Pesach? So if you shecht it on Shabbos, because that mitzvah is you shecht it on the day, on the 14th,
right,
in the afternoon. The 14th in the afternoon is Shabbos.
right.
So back then, there's a whole debate in the Gemara how much skinning, for example, you're allowed to do, filleting, right?
Yeah, right. We had that.
So you go up, because it is the tzorches shomayim, the part of the korban that goes on the altar, part of the korban that you're consuming.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to make preparation for yourself on Shabbos. So that was a discussion by itself. Those opinions that you can do the whole thing, opinions that you can do only what the Mizbeach is required. But over here it says, the first night of Pesach falls on Saturday night, meaning Motzei Shabbos. In such a case, the Pesach offering is offered that Shabbos afternoon. Shabbos afternoon, you're offering Korban Pesach. If someone forgot to acquire a lamb for his offering before Shabbos, now it's Shabbos, you realize, hey, it's Pesach, I need to offer a lamb. It's right before Pesach. So, if he lost his animal, he must buy one on Shabbos itself. What do? How do you buy a lamb on Pesach? How do you buy a lamb on Shabbos?
Yeah.
So it says, you are in Yerushalayim, and the day of Pesach, the day before Pesach falls on Shabbos. Maniach taliso etzloi. So I can leave my cloak with you, with the seller. And takes his Pesach. So I'm not giving you money.
Yeah.
I'm leaving an object that I own. I'm leaving it with you.
Yeah.
That's the collateral. And he does make reckoning with him, makes a cheshbon after Yom Tov, how much was the lamb, how much it needs to be paid.
You know, since yesterday was Tisha B'Av, I remember seeing the stalls by the kotel that used to be there, that they used to sell the korbans. So every time that we come up to this, I remember it. So I remember, and hopefully we'll have those stalls back with the base of
Amen. Amen. So the Gemara, going to the Gemara, by specifying that one may not say halveni, we said wilvad lo yomar halveni, provided it does not say, you should not say halveni. I thought that he should say halveni. He says you should not say halveni.
You don't know how to let, because you can't land on Shabbos.
Why? It says in the Gemara will explain why you shouldn't say. The rabbis permitted borrowing on Shabbos and Yom Tov in the prescribed manner so that people would not lack the items they need for their enjoyment of the Shabbos and Yom Tov. The parties to loan understand that the borrower will repay wine and oil or whatever, or the value in money. So it shouldn't say Alveini, you should just ask him, can you give me this and this object, wine, oil, whatever he's missing on Shabbos. Amar li Rav Bar Chanan Abaye, Ma'ishna Hashileni, Ma'ishna Alveini. What's the difference between if he says Hashileni or let me borrow or lend me? What's the difference? What is the difference between Hashileni and Halveini? Right. That is, why does the Mishnah prohibit Halveini, lend me, but permit Hashileni, can I borrow from you? Amar le, he said to him, Hashileni, if the borrower says Hashileni, lo asel, the lender will not come to write the loan, you see? He will not come to write the loan down in his ledger, because this term signifies a loan of minimal duration. Hashileni. Hashileni connotates it's coming back to you quickly. It's not a long-term loan. Halveini, however, the borrower says Halveini osi lemichtav. There's a concern that the lender will come to write it down. Since this expression connotes a loan of longer duration.
Okay, so on Shabbos you gotta say Hashlein.
Yeah, if you would say Alveini, there's a concern that he might write it down. Oh, okay, but since on the weekday, there are times when the borrower wants to say to the lender Halveini, oh Marle Ashileni, but instead he says to him Ashileni. He says, what happened during the week if I come to you and I ask you for an object and I use the word Hashileni instead of Alveini? He said, Loi copy, the person is not, wouldn't care, we'll just write it down.
Right.
So he said, Hashileni, if you call a loan shark and you tell him, I need $10,000, I need $10,000, or lend me $10,000. What does he care? He writes it down anyway.
Right.
So maybe the guy will write it also if you use the word Ashileni.
Well, what could you do?
No, but that's the Gemara is asking. How do you saying by Ashileni you're preventing the guy from writing it down? Because these terms are interchangeable, there's a concern that he might write it down still, even if you use the word Ashileni.
Well, if the guy is not Shomer Shabbos, what are you going to do?
No, it could be that out of habit. He's a Shomer Shabbos. We're not dealing with people that aren't. We are trying to prevent people. You have to remember, Shabbos is out of the ordinary. You are accustomed to walk into a room to turn on the light, and going out of the room, shut off the light.
You have to remember not to do it.
And Shabbos, suddenly, you have to have a switch in your mind. It's a different day. I got to be careful not to do this, not to do that. There's so many things.
It's true.
So the Rabbi says, how can we prevent somebody from mistakenly not come to write it down? If he's used to sit in his office, you are now causing that person to do a weekday activity on Shabbos that he's accustomed to do. Let's say he's a lender. A guy is lending money. Yeah. So you come to him on Shabbos, suddenly he goes to his office and he's lending you money. So maybe if he already did this, or not lending you money because you can't money on Shabbos, but he's going into his storage and lending you something, and he's always used to write something, he's going to just come and write it. Not that he's not Shomer Shabbos. If we're dealing with a person that's not Shomer Shabbos, it's not even...
So then you have to say, don't write, I don't know.
No, the Gemara just want to say, if Ashileni doesn't save you from anything. Okay. That's what they're trying to... That's the point they're trying to say.
So what can you do? I don't know.
So Omar Lei, so said B'chol de lo yishno ki Omar le alveini lo yishno ki Omar Ashileni. On weekdays, whether the borrower says to the lender alveini or Ashileni, lo kabdin alei, he doesn't care. We are not particular with him. We realize that he seeks a loan of substantial duration, although this is not necessarily indicated by his choice of words. Osi lemichtav, and the lender will come to write. B'Shabbos, on Shabbos, however, kivan hashileni hu d'shol l'rabon. Since it is only hashileni that the rabbis permit him to say alveni l'shole, they did not permit him to say alveni min komilto. It is evident that he means. So when he says hashileni, it is evident that he means a loan of minimal duration. V'lo osi lemichtav, and the lender will not come to write it down. So what does the Gemara says? Well, how does it answer that Ashileni doesn't help? He said during the week, like there's no kpeda, there's no, we're not particular about it. If he says this word or that word, when it comes to Shabbos, we are particular about it. He says Ashileni, it's noticeable that that's the only term he's allowed to use. He might not, there's more chances that the lender would not come to write it. So the Gemara says, Min kro milta, it is evident that he means a loan of minimal duration. If it's minimal duration, he knows he's getting back the object anyway, he's not going to write it down. Amar le Rava bar Chanan, Amar le Abaye. Amar le Rava bar Rav Chanan le Abaye. Amu Rabban Kumil di Yom Tov. Mikti. Now let us see. Amu Rabban Kumil di Yom Tov. The rabbi said in all matters of Yom Tov, all activity is performed on Yom Tov. Kama de'efshar l'shanu mishanin. However much is it possible to deviate from the normal manner of performing the activity, we should deviate. Right? So it should be noticeable that it's Yom Tov. Those women who fill their buckets with water from the river on Yom Tov and carry them home. And why do they not deviate from the usual manner of carrying water? The women may carry in the normal manner because it is not possible for them to deviate. What should they do? If you will suggest that those who draw water with a large bucket, limalu bechatzbo zuta, should deviate and draw with a small bucket, this would increase their walking and is consequently not a valid deviation. I guess they would increase their walking, means they would walk a little longer.
No, they would go back and forth to get the water, the same amount of water twice, like a big bucket once and two small buckets twice.
So they would make it double.
Right. So
you suggest that those who draw water with a small bucket, limalu bechatbaraba, should deviate and draw with a large bucket. Kamapshu b'masay, this would increase their load. Nipo sudro osili de schito says, if you will suggest that they spread a kerchief over the bucket, the kerchief may become soaked with water, and one might come to perform the forbidden act of squeezing. Nichse bechitmo. Well, if you say that they should cover the bucket with a lid, there are times when the cord attaching the lid to the bucket breaks, and one might come to tie it. So therefore, it is not possible to deviate, and the women may carry in the normal manner. So if it's too hard to deviate, it should not be done. None. We may not clap hands, no beat chest, no dance on Yom Tov. But we saw people that do this, that they would clap, beat chest, and dance on Yom Tov. And yet we tell them no words of rebuke. Abaya responds by showing that the lack of protest against a common practice does not necessarily indicate that the practice is permitted. And according to your reasoning, which postulates that it is incumbent upon the rabbis to protest any violation of the law. How do you explain our lack of protest against non-compliance with Hodomaravo, that which Rava said, Loi leisi vinish apuma delechi, a person may not sit at the edge of an alleyway by the lechi on the Shabbos, Dilma mignedar lei chefetz, because an object might roll away from him into the main thoroughfare, and he might come to carry it back. But yet we still see women place their buckets and sit on them at the edge of the alleyway, and we tell them no words of rebuke. Abaye now explains why we do not protest in both instances. Rather, let the Jews continue in their practice, since they will not change their ways, even if rebuked. It is preferable that they be unintentional violators and not deliberate violators.
If you had it for bringing and you're doing the gunim, people would come to clap.
Right, it says, since they will, in number 14, they write, since they will not abstain from sitting at the entrance of the alleyway, even when told of the prohibition, it is better not to rebuke them. It is preferable to let them do so under the erroneous impression that they are doing, that what they are doing is permitted, than for them to do so knowing it is prohibited. A deliberate violation of the law is worse than a violation due to error. So, they thought that these words, that we should refrain from rebuking someone who will not listen, apply only by the Rabbon with regard to rabbinic law. Aval b'deraisa law, but with regard to biblical law, it is not so. We must rebuke violators of biblical law in all instances. Veloi hi, but this is not correct. Lo yishna b'derabbonon velo yishna b'deraisa. There is no difference between rabbinic and biblical law. In both cases, we do not rebuke violators who will not listen. The whole Tosefes Yom Kippurim deraisa. This can be proven for the extension of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur fast is required according to biblical law. Let's see what it says in 17. The Torah states in Leviticus 23:32, you shall afflict yourselves on the 9th of the month, but Yom Kippur actually begins on the 10th day of Tishrei. So this pasuk is therefore understood to require the fast to be started while it is still day of the 9th, before nightfall of the 10th. This extension need be only of normal duration. Minimal duration.
Yeah, so we start like we do Shabbos. Shabbos starts like an hour early.
Yeah. It says, what about, we saw people are eating right before Yom Kippur, so meaning they eat till the last minute.
Yeah.
Yet we saw people eat and drink until dark without starting their fast early. And we didn't rebuke them. In the same manner, women may borrow loaves of bread from their friend, provided that she does not say halveni. It is on Shabbos that it is forbidden to borrow loaves if she says halveni. But on the weekday Shabbat it is okay. Shall we say that the Mishnah does not follow Hillel? Hillel used to say, a woman may not lend a loaf of bread to her friend until she assesses its value at the time of the loan. For perhaps wheat will become more expensive, and the parties will be found to have come to a violation of the laws of interest. So Gemara says, "Afilu tema beilu kinim." Says that our Mishnah agrees with Hillel. This Mishnah, our Mishnah, which permits lending loaves even without assessing their value. Also, the kids the may refers to a place where the price of a loaf is fixed. Whereas this Hillel's ruling, which prohibits lending loaves without monetary assessment, also the loy kids the may refers to a place where the price of a loaf is not fixed. And if the lender does not trust him, he does not trust the borrower, may leave. If the lender does not trust him, the borrower may leave his cloak with the lender. That's a collateral, and make a reckoning with him after the Shabbos. The Gemara discusses whether a loan that was made in the permissible manner on the Shabbos or Yom Tov is reclaimable in court. Can you take the guy to court for lending him something on Shabbos? Yes or no?
I don't think so, but I don't.
Itmar alvas Yom Tov Rav Yosef Omar lo nitna li tova. According to Rav Yosef, it is not reclaimable in court. But Rabbi Omar, Rabbi said, nitna li tova. It is reclaimable in court. Rav Yosef Omar lo nitna li tova. Rav Yosef said that you cannot reclaim it in court. The Omar nitna li tova, because if you say it is reclaimable, the lender will come to write a record. If he understands, one day I'm going to be able to if he doesn't pay me, I'm going to take him to court. So therefore, I need to have some proof. If I need proof, I got to write it down. I got to make an invoice. Rabbi says it is that it is reclaimable in court. Because if you say it is not reclaimable, the lender will not give anything to the borrower in the first place. And the borrower will come to be prevented from enjoying Yom Tov. That's why he says it is reclaimable, because nobody would want to lend anything.
Right.
So I can never recoup my...
So if I need a chali from you, you're not going to give it to me.
Yeah, I guess back then when it was a very expensive commodity, oil or wine, things like that. Tenan, you can have a situation. Let's say I have a liquor store, and you have a big party. Your son is getting married, or your son have a kiddush, and you forgot to buy wine. Yeah. So you come to me on Shabbos and you say, I need 5 cases of wine. I'm giving you the keys to my liquor store, and you take the 5 cases of wine. That could be expensive,
Yeah.
Big bucks.
And it's a problem.
Well, that's why Rabbah says it's reclaimable in court, because if I would know that I can never reclaim it from you, I would be reluctant to give it to you.
Right. And you have an ufus and you forgot.
Yeah, so it could happen. Tanan.
Yeah, that could happen. I could see that.
I know in 770, I think they had some kind of an arrangement with the store if they get stuck, if they run out of vodka or something.
That can happen there. I was there for bringing, and we went all the way to the end of Shabbos.
Right. If the lender does not trust him, the borrower may leave his cloak with the lender. Now, this is understandable if you say that it, meaning a loan made on Yom Tov, is not reclaimable in court. So that's why he leaves the cloak with the borrower. You don't have to get into reclaimable or not reclaimable in court. You can leave it with non-reclaimable. Just leave the cloak with the guy.
Yeah.
And he makes a cheshbon with him, a reckoning with him after Shabbos. But if you say it is reclaimable in court, why should he leave the cloak? Let the lender give the borrower whatever he needs, without taking a security in return. But then if the borrower refuses to repay, let the lender claim payment from him in court. You understand? The moment you say it's reclaimable, then why do I need the collateral?
Yeah.
The Gemara deflects the proof. arguing that even if the loan is reclaimable in court, the lender would want a security for the following reason. I do not want to become involved with litigation and judges. To avoid the litigation, I want the collateral.
Cut out all the garbage.
The Gemara challenged Rav Yosef's opinion that a loan made on Yom Tov, that's like I said before with the pawn shop, they would take something because they don't want to go into litigation. They want to keep the item with them, and that's it.
Right.
If you want to sue us, you go sue us. But we have already something here.
Yeah, you know what they do in the pawn shop? Let's say they give the watch worth 200, and then you go back to reclaim it and they say they want 300. They get the watch.
Not allowed to. Well, if you need to pay, you need to make let's say a pawn shop gave you $1,000 and
against the watch.
Your watch is worth $10,000. Okay, you gave him a Rolex.
Right.
So you, for the $1,000, need to pay them every month an X amount of money.
Right.
So if you didn't pay it, when you come to take the watch, they give you a bill for all the times because they're not lending you free of interest.
Right.
They're lending you with interest. So let's say for the $1,000, they want $20 a month, assuming
right.
$20 interest only loan. So the $1,000 is waiting. Is you owe them $1,000 and $20 every month. Right. Let's say you didn't show up for a year. The loan is for 2 years. You didn't show up for a year, and then after a year you came. You say, okay, $20 times 12, give us $240, and that's it. If you give it $240, we'll give you back the watch. I think this is how it works.
Except they have to make money.
That's how they make money, because they charge you interest.
If they didn't charge you interest, they wouldn't make money. So, how's the pawn shop going to make money?
Right. No, but they make money also on items that they buy and sell.
They sell. Take your watch, and you don't know. They say, okay, you didn't come after a month. It's half or whatever.
No, that if you're gone. If let's say the agreement was for a year and you're gone.
Right after the year, they can
and you're
sell
not paying
the
them back, then they confiscate the watch and they can sell it.
Right.
But the point is, Gemara tells us that in order to avoid litigation and going to court and judges, could be very expensive. So he would still want to have a collateral, even though he knows he can always have the option to take it to court. He doesn't want to go there.
Right. Okay.
One who slaughters a cow and apportions it out to his friends on the Rosh Hashanah after the Shemitah year, and they thus become obligated to pay him the price of the portions. Now we have to see why is it relevant that it was on Rosh Hashanah. It's in 34. The Torah mandates that every 7th year, designated as a Shemitah year. Also, we have to understand why that he did it after the Shemitah year. Outstanding loans are automatically canceled at the end of the year. So the event described here occurred on the first day, Rosh Hashanah, of the year after Shemitah. So now that means that your loan remains active and effective
for 6 years.
For till the next Shemitah.
Right.
So it says in 35, since Elul. First the Gemara says, if the preceding month of Elul was full, lasted 30 days, it was a Lamed in the month, in which case that day belonged to the preceding Shemitah year. Lamed is still part of the Shemitah year.
Right.
Meshamet means Shemitah cancels a debt. There's no debt.
Yeah.
But if the Elul was not full, lasted only 29 days, in which case that day belonged to the next year, right? It's Aleph Tishrei. Aleph Tishrei is already New Year. Eino Meshamet, Shemitah does not cancel the debt. Now, if the loan made on Yom Tov is not reclaimable in court. What does the Mishnah mean when it states that if Elul was full, Shemitah cancels the debt? The debt is cancelled in any event.
So why would anybody give you anything that day?
If the loan made on Yom Tov is not reclaimable in court, what does the Mishnah mean when it states that if Elul was full, Shemitah cancel the debt? The debt is cancelled in any event because it's not reclaimable. What difference does it make if it was Lamed or Aleph, meaning if it was full month of Elul?
And
or wasn't
a principle, you can't write because it's Rosh Hashanah.
It's not no. If you follow the opinion, it's not reclaimable. It's not reclaimable. What difference does it make?
Okay, if it's that day and I know I'm not going to get anything, get it back, why am I going to loan it to you?
You're right. You don't have much of incentive to do it. Maybe just the mitzvah.
I got that. I'm just saying, I'm going with this for of the Gemara.
Right.
Here.
Let's see. Shani Osam. So the Gemara says the Iglan Milsa de Chol because it is transpired that the day the debt was contracted was a weekday and not Yom Tov. Tashma Miseifa, that if you look at 37, it says that the day observed as Rosh Hashanah was actually not Rosh Hashanah, but the last day of the previous year. Although the day was treated as Rosh Hashanah, its real status was not certain. Rav Yosef's ruling that loans made on Yom Tov are not reclaimable in court applies to a day that is certainly Yom Tov. Okay, that's the interpretation of the Tosfos and Rashbo, Ritva Mahak, and Keren Oira. Tashma Miseifa, come learn a proof from the last part of the Mishnah. Im Lav Eino Mishamet, if Elul was not full, Elul was 29 days only, and thus the day of the dead belonged to the year after Shemitah. Shemitah does not cancel the debt. This is not understandable if you said that a loan made on Yom Tov is reclaimable in court. That is the meaning of what the Mishnah states. Shemitah does not cancel. The debt remains fully reclaimable. But if you say that such a loan is not reclaimable in court, why does the Mishnah? What does the Mishnah mean when it states Shemitah does not cancel the debt?
39.
By saying Eino Meshamet, Shemitah does not cancel, the Mishnah implies that the debt is collectible in court. The Mishnah means that if the debtor gives the creditor payment, shokel, the creditor may take it. That implies that in the Mishnah's first case, where the debt was cancelled by Shemitah, if the debtor gives the creditor payment, loy shokel, the creditor may not take it because he doesn't. There's no debt. But if the debtor is willing to pay, why may the creditor not accept? The Gemara says, Reisha, in the first case of the Mishnah where Shemitah cancelled the debt, the creditor must say to the debtor who wishes to pay him, I relinquish my debt. You don't need to pay me. Seifa, but the last case of the Mishnah where Shemitah did not cancel the debt, the creditor does not need to say to the debtor, I relinquish the debt. The Gemara cites the source for the law that a creditor must refuse payment of a debt cancelled by Shemitah. Kedetnan, Machzir Choiv b'Shvis. If one repays a debt during Shavis, the creditor should say to him, I relinquish the debt. And if the debtor replied to him, even so, I wish to return the money to you, the creditor may accept the money from him. Mishum shenema, V'zeh dvar shmita, for it is stated, and this is the statement of the relinquishment. The Gemara describes the two Amoraim, how two Amoraim used to assure that loans they made on Yom Tov would be repaid. Rav Avia would take collateral when the loan was made. Rabbi Ba'ula would employ subterfuge. What was the subterfuge? It says in 45, after Yom Tov, Rabbi Ba'ula would take some article from the debtor and keep it as payment of the loan. He would do it after Yom Tov. Some Rishonim explained that Rabbi Ba'ula would ask the debtor to lend him something, and when the debtor would seek repayment, Rabbi Ba'ula would tell him that he should keep the items he had borrowed earlier on Yom Tov. Some Rishonim explained that Rabbi Ba'ula would ask the debtor to lend him something, and when the debtor would seek repayment, Rabbi Ba'ula would tell him that he should keep the items he had borrowed earlier on Yom Tov. It seems that Rabbi Avia and Rabbi Ba'ula resorted to these tactics because the halacha is that the loans made in Yom Tov are not reclaimable in court. On the other hand, it could be argued that such loans are reclaimable in court and that these Amoraim accepted an extra legal stringency upon themselves. Of Pesach, so too when the day before Pesach falls on Shabbos, the purchaser of a Pesach offering may leave his cloak with the seller, take his Pesach offering, and make a reckoning with the seller after Yom Tov. Rabbi Yochanan said, Makdish Odom Pischa v'Shabbos. Person may consecrate his Pesach offering on the Shabbos, v'chagigosu Yom Tov, and his chagiga offering on Yom Tov. Let us say that the following supports Rabbi Yochanan. So too in Yerushalayim, when the day before Pesach falls on Shabbos, he, the purchaser of a Pesach offering, may leave his cloak with the seller. He take his Pesach offering, make a reckoning with the seller after Yom Tov. Our Mishnah evidently permits one to consecrate a Pesach offering on the Shabbos. The Gemara reflects the proof from our Mishnah by limiting it to a particular case. What are we dealing with here? We are possibly dealing with one who enrolls others along with himself to share in his Pesach offering. So that already from before Shabbos, the animal stood consecrated. Since the Mishnah possibly speaks of this case, an animal consecrated before the Shabbos, it does not prove Rabbi Yochanan's ruling that one may consecrate a Pesach offering on Shabbos itself. We learned in the Mishnah, people may not be enrolled initially into a group, it's called a chabura, to purchase the meat of an animal on Yom Tov. We see that it is forbidden to purchase an animal or a share in an animal on Yom Tov or the Shabbos. This case where someone enrolls in a group that owns a Pesach offering is different from that of the aforementioned Mishnah. Since the person seeking to enroll was accustomed to do so with a member of this group in previous chapters, in previous years, he is considered as one who was already enrolled from before the Shabbos. You're already in the club way before. The Gemara has argued that our Mishnah can be interpreted in accordance with the position that one may not consecrate a Pesach offering on the Shabbos. His position is now challenged. But Rabbi Yishai is taught the following advice: a person may go on the Shabbos to a shepherd who is accustomed to him, maybe someone you did business with before, shepherd who has sold him animals frequently in the past, and the shepherd may give him a lamb for his Pesach offering. The purchaser may then consecrate the lamb and fulfill his obligation with it. The Vaisa state explicitly that one may consecrate an animal as a Pesach offering on the Shabbos. Also, Nami, in that case too, Kevan the Rogiletzo, since the shepherd was accustomed to him, which means that he had sold him animals for his Pesach offering in the previous years, the shepherd already consecrated that lamb for him before the Shabbos. No consecration took place on the Shabbos. Gemara challenges this interpretation of Rabbi Menashe.
So she came to Kaddish the behemoth on Shabbos, you have to do it before.
Right, but he says that since you have been going to the shepherd all along,
right,
it's most likely that he already designated one for you.
Okay.
It's like if you have a regular customer,
Like
you have a regular customer, it's already prepared before you even call it. Yeah. You be careful saying it on record because she might listen to it.
I wish she would, because I know she would.
Ramagdish Kitani, but the Braisa explicitly states, he, the purchaser, consecrates the animal. Egdish Ilum the Rabbanon, the Braisa is possibly referring to a consecration that is only a rabbinic elevation of the animal's status. It says in number 55, the rabbis required a person who is going to offer an animal to verbally consecrate it, even if it was already consecrated by someone else. Since the actual consecration took effect before the Shabbos, the Braisa does not prove that one may consecrate offerings on Shabbos. Did Rabbi Yochanan actually say this, that one may consecrate offering on Shabbos in Yom Tov? Rabbi Yochanan, halacha kistam Mishnah, the halacha follows the view stated in an anonymous Mishnah. Sinan, we'll learn in an anonymous Mishnah. We may not consecrate nor make erech vow, which is a valuation, nor make a cherem, which is putting something aside. A person may pronounce, it says in 58, a person may pronounce an object that he owns as cherem, set aside for priestly or temple use. When he does not specify the exact nature of the cherem, it becomes the property of the temple treasury. The rabbis banned these activities because they resemble commercial transaction, insofar as the ownership of an object is transferred from an individual to that of the temple treasury. No separate, not allowed to separate, tumas, or tithe, kol elu b'yom tov. Kol elu b'yom tov. All these prohibitions were promulgated for Yom Tov. Kal v'chomer b'Shabbos. Certainly they apply to the Shabbos. This anonymous Mishnah prohibits the consecration of anything on the Shabbos or Yom Tov. How then can Rabbi Yochanan say that the law follows anonymous Mishnah, and yet rule that one may consecrate offerings on the Shabbos and Yom Tov? The Gemara resolves the contradiction. Rabbi Yochanan permits to consecrate offering on Shabbos and Yom Tov. The reference is to obligatory offerings that have a fixed time. Like what? Number 60, the Pesach must be offered on the 14th of Nisan, even if that day is Shabbos. Similarly, the Chagiga must be offered on Yom Tov. The obligation to bring these offerings override the various prohibitions of the day. For example, slaughtering on the Shabbos. Since the Torah waived its prohibition for the sake of these sacrifices, the rabbis waived their prohibition against consecrating them. So where does Rabbi Yochanan follow the anonymous Mishnah? You're not supposed to do it. Mishnah's prohibition against consecrating on Shabbos and Yom Tov, the reference is to obligatory offerings that do not have a fixed time. It says in 61, since the offering of such sacrifices, chatus, for example, does not override the Shabbos and Yom Tov prohibition, the rabbinic prohibition of consecrating an animal for korban chatos, for sin offering on Shabbos and Yom Tov, remains in force. Shouldn't do it. Going to the next Mishnah. A person may count his guest and delicacies orally. say, okay, I have this amount of donuts, I have this amount of guests. Right? It says in 62, he may count the number of guests and he wishes to invite in order to know how many loaves of bread he will need. But obviously, but not from a written note. Shouldn't count them from a written note. Why? We'll see later. It says in 64, he may count his guests from memory, but not from a guest list prepared before Shabbos. Gemara will discuss why this is prohibited. It is forbidden to read from the list, even if one reads silently and does not recite the words out loud. First opinion cited by Rashba. Okay. So, a person may cast lots with his children and members of his household for portions of food at the table, provided that he does not intend to wager a large portion against a small portion. What does it mean? So 65 tells us the portion must be equal in value. You may not cast lots for unequal portions of food, the winner being awarded the larger portion and the loser receiving a smaller portion.
What's the point then?
You have, a special delicacy, caviar,
Okay.
or tongue, whatever, and you make, so who's going to get the bigger portion? You're making a lot. You're casting a lot.
No, but they said not bigger or smaller. They're supposed to be equal, so what's the point? You may not cast lots for unequal portions of food. The winner being awarded the larger portion. And the loser.
Person may cast lots with children, provided he does not intend to wager a large portion against. So, what is the lot for?
True, that's what I'm asking. Okay,
so lots are appropriate even to allocate equal portions, because the people present might have a preference for a certain type of portion.
Right,
the thigh of the meat as opposed.
Like my wife is crazy for the white meat of the chicken.
The white is the breast.
Yeah, I don't care.
Chicken breast.
So I have the thigh and the leg, and she has it.
But if you did care, you and you can make a lot. You can cast a lot.
Right.
To figure out which one.
It works out well in my house.
Kohanim may cast lots for sacrifices in Yom Tov, but not for portions.
All right, we're done.
Let's see, it's 66. The Gemara will explain this. Okay, Buchim Tiu. We'll learn a little bit of halacha shortly, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah. Maybe we should come